Questions. Namaste everyone. Life is such a beautiful mixture. Joy and pain, smiles and tears, chocolates and chili powder. A pause, smile, we all love the chocolate moments. Questions. But the chilly ones, those moments of hurt, they really burn us from the inside, don't they? Whether it's a betrayal from someone we trusted, a harsh word from someone we love. Questions. Or a disappointment that breaks our expectations. Pain is something none of us can escape. But today I want to share something very simple, yet very profound. When you're hurt, questions, stay silent first. Or once a little boy was walking barefoot on a road filled with pebbles. He screamed in pain, crying, "These stones are hurting me." An old man nearby smiled and said, "Questions. Son, sit down first. Remove the stone stuck in your foot, then speak." That's exactly what silence does. When you're hurt, your mind is reacting. But silence allows your mind to respond. Questions. Because between reaction and response lies the space called wisdom. And that wisdom only appears when you are silent. Have you ever sent an angry text message and then regretted it? So pause. Questions. Smile or you type. I will tell them exactly what I think. Then after 5 minutes, questions. You reread it and think, maybe I shouldn't have told them everything I think. We've all done that. Because when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Questions. And silence gives intelligence a chance to return. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. He was deeply hurt by his colleague. He came to me and said, "Job, questions. I feel like blasting him." I said, "Wait, do one thing, stay silent for a day." He said, "Just one day." I said, "Tree." The next day, he came back. I asked questions. Still angry, he said, "A little less." I said, "Stay silent for another day." After 3 days, he came smiling. I asked, "What happened?" He said, "Questions. No, I understand. He wasn't trying to insult me. He was under pressure himself." And I told him, "See, silence didn't solve the problem. It solved you first." Questions. And then you could solve the problem. When you're hurt, silence is not weakness. It is strength under control. It's not escaping. It's understanding. Because sometimes, questions, words spoken in pain are like arrows. Once released, you can't take them back. But silence gives you the power to aim your thoughts before you shoot your words. Questions. And remember, silence is not the absence of communication. It's the presence of self-control. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "One who can control his mind," questions, finds peace within. When we are silent, we turn inward from the noise of the world to the calm of our soul. And in that stillness, healing begins. The world tells us, questions, speak up, but wisdom whispers, stay silent first. Because silence is the space where God speaks to you, where clarity begins, where forgiveness grows, and where peace resides. One day, questions, a monk was insulted by a man in the marketplace. The monk simply smiled. His disciple asked, "Guruji, why didn't you reply?" The monk said, questions, when someone gives you a gift and you don't accept it, who does it belong to? The disciple said, "To the giver." The monk said, "Exactly. I didn't accept his anger." Questions. So it stays with him. When you stay silent, you are not losing. You are choosing peace over poison. My friends, when you're hurt, stay silent first. Questions. Not forever, just long enough to let your heart breathe, your mind think, and your soul heal. Because words can heal, but only if they come from peace, not from pain. So next time life hurts you, questions, don't react immediately. Pause, reflect, heal, then speak with clarity, kindness, and strength. Questions. In today's world, silence is often misunderstood. People think that if you're silent, you're weak. If you don't react, you're scared. If you don't argue, you're defeated. Questions. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Silence, when chosen consciously, is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. Questions. It takes immense inner power to remain calm when your emotions are demanding you to explode. It takes courage to stay still when your ego wants to fight back. Think about it. Anyone can shout questions, anyone can argue, anyone can react in anger. But it takes real maturity, real emotional intelligence to stay silent and observe instead of react. Silence is not about suppressing your feelings, questions. It's about mastering them. Let's take a very simple daily life example. Imagine you're driving and someone cuts you off in traffic. What's the first instinct? Anger, frustration, questions, maybe a few creative words. But what happens after that? Your mood is ruined, your heartbeat goes up, and your mind keeps replaying the incident even after you've reached home. The other person, questions, meanwhile has already forgotten about it. In that moment, if you simply took a deep breath, stayed silent and moved on, who won? You did, questions. Because you didn't allow someone else's behavior to control your peace of mind. That is strength. Silence doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're in control. Questions. It means you've mastered the art of not giving energy to things that don't deserve it. Most people react instantly to hurt, to criticism, or to disrespect. But the wise ones pause. Questions. They know that silence is not surrender, it's strategy. When you stay silent, you are giving yourself the gift of time. Time to think, to reflect, to respond with wisdom instead of emotion. Questions. Let's look at another scenario. You're at work and a colleague takes credit for something you did. You feel a sting inside. Your first urge might be to confront, argue, or even shout. But imagine questions. Instead, you choose silence first. You don't ignore what happened, but you choose not to react immediately. You take a step back, calm your mind, and allow the wave of emotion to pass. Then, questions. When the right moment comes, you speak, not with anger, but with clarity and confidence. What you say then will carry far more power, because it will come from calmness, not chaos. Questions. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. In relationships too, silence can be a great strength. Think about arguments with loved ones. Often, when two people are angry, they both want to be heard. Questions, but nobody wants to listen. Words get louder, tempers rise, and soon love gets buried under ego. But if even one person chooses silence, not out of fear, questions, but out of love, the storm begins to settle. Silence gives space for understanding to grow. It allows emotions to cool down so that real communication can begin later. Questions. When hearts are softer and minds are clear, a wise person once said, "Don't raise your voice, improve your argument." And sometimes the best argument is silence. Questions. Because silence cannot be misquoted. When you're silent, you're not giving the other person any ammunition to twist your words or use them against you. Questions. You're simply choosing peace over pointless debates. Silence also has an incredible power to make others reflect. When you respond to anger with silence, questions, people eventually start thinking about their own behavior. Your calmness becomes their mirror. Your silence becomes their teacher. That's the beauty of it. You're not fighting them. Questions. You're transforming them. One of the most inspiring examples of this comes from Mahatma Gandhi. He was insulted, mocked, and attacked countless times. Questions. Yet he often chose silence as his first response. His silence wasn't weakness, it was discipline. It was the silence of someone who had mastered himself. And through that inner mastery, questions, he shook the foundation of an empire, not with words but with peace. In our daily life, we can all practice this art in small moments. When someone gossips about you, stay silent first. Questions. When someone criticizes you unfairly, stay silent first. When life doesn't go your way, stay silent first. Because silence gives you clarity. In silence, questions, you begin to hear your inner voice. The one that tells you, questions. Don't lower your standards to match their noise. People who misunderstand silence are the ones who haven't yet discovered its power. The strongest trees don't make noise while growing. Questions. The deepest oceans stay calm at the surface. The most powerful minds often speak less and think more. Silence is the language of strength. Now, this doesn't mean you should stay silent forever. Questions. It means you should stay silent first. Let silence be your first reaction and words your thoughtful response. Words spoken after silence carry a certain gravity. They are measured, meaningful questions, and mindful. And that's what makes people listen. Next time you feel hurt, remember staying silent doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to choose peace over drama. Questions. It means you respect yourself enough not to waste your energy on negativity. It means you have learned the art of emotional maturity, the art of winning from within. Questions. Because real strength is not shown by how loud you can shout, but by how calm you can stay. Anyone can fight chaos with chaos, but it takes a true warrior to fight chaos with silence. So, questions. When the world tests your patience, smile gently, breathe deeply, and remember silence is not your defeat, it's your superpower. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, questions. Be the one who speaks through calmness. Be the one whose silence speaks louder than noise. And one day, you'll realize that silence didn't just protect your peace. It defined your strength. Questions. Life gives us many moments that test our emotions, moments that push our buttons, challenge our patience, and provoke our pride. In those moments, how we behave determines whether we grow or regret. Questions. The difference between reacting and responding may look small, but it creates an ocean of difference in the quality of our relationships, peace, and decisions. Questions. Between reaction and response lies something powerful, wisdom. And that wisdom is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary souls. A reaction is immediate, it comes from impulse. Questions. It's like a spark, quick, fiery, and often destructive. A response, on the other hand, is thoughtful. It's not driven by emotion but guided by understanding. It comes from reflection. Questions. Not reflex. Let's take a simple, relatable example. Imagine you're in a queue at the supermarket. You've been standing for 20 minutes, and suddenly, questions. Someone just walks ahead of you and cuts the line. Your mind screams, how dare they? You feel the heat rising. Now, in that very second, you have two options. You can react or you can respond. Questions. If you react, you might shout, argue, or even insult the person. Everyone around looks at you, tension builds, and your mood is ruined for the rest of the day. Questions. But if you choose to pause, even for a few seconds, take a breath and respond with calmness, maybe saying, excuse me, I think I was ahead, your energy stays intact. Questions. And your dignity remains untouched. That pause, that space, is where wisdom lies. The space between reaction and response is the most powerful space you'll ever discover. Questions. Because in that space, you decide whether to be a slave of emotion or the master of it. When someone hurts us, criticizes us, or acts unfairly, the natural instinct is to strike back. Questions. But when we react in anger, we give them control over us. We hand over the steering wheel of our peace to their behavior. Responding, however, means we take that wheel back into our own hands. Questions. Consider this: when a stone is thrown into a pond, the water ripples for a while and then returns to stillness. The pond doesn't chase the stone. Questions. It simply absorbs the disturbance and becomes calm again. In life, people will throw words, actions, and opinions at us like stones. If we react every time, our mind remains disturbed. Questions. But if we allow the ripples to settle, if we stay still for a moment, our inner clarity returns and we can decide wisely what to do next. There's a famous saying. Questions. A moment of patience in a moment of anger saves you 100 moments of regret. How true that is. Think of all the times you've said something you didn't mean. Questions. Sent a message you shouldn't have, or made a decision you later wished you could undo. All those moments were born from reactions, not responses. Let's look at another everyday example. Questions. Imagine you're at home and your teenager or your spouse says something rude. It hurts. Your ego wakes up instantly. How dare they talk to me like that? You feel the fire inside. Questions, ready to defend, to retaliate. But pause, take a deep breath. Remind yourself, if I react now, I'll add fuel to the fire. But if I wait, questions, the flames will die down. That short pause is the birth of wisdom. You might find that after some time, they come and apologize. Something that would never happen if you had reacted immediately. Questions. This principle applies not just to people, but also to life situations. When you face failure or disappointment, your first reaction might be to feel frustrated, to blame yourself or others. Questions. But wisdom teaches us to respond instead, to reflect on what can be learned, to adjust our direction, and to move forward stronger. Reaction drains energy, response transforms it. Questions. One beautiful example of this wisdom can be seen in the life of Lord Buddha. Once, a man came to him and started insulting him in front of everyone. The man shouted, cursed, questions, and tried his best to provoke him. Buddha remained silent, calm, and smiling. Later, his disciples asked, "Why didn't you say anything, Master?" Buddha replied, questions. If someone gives you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does it belong? The disciple said, "To the giver." Buddha smiled and said, "Exactly." Questions. His anger is still with him because I didn't accept it. What? That's the power of response. When you react, you become part of someone else's chaos. When you respond, you rise above it. Questions. Reaction is the voice of the ego. Response is the voice of wisdom. Reaction says, I'll show them. Response says, I'll show myself that I'm better than this. Reaction is loud. Questions. Response is quiet but powerful. Reaction comes from the outside world's noise. Response comes from the stillness of your inner world. In daily life, questions. The best way to cultivate this gap, that sacred space between reaction and response, is through mindfulness. When you feel anger rising, don't immediately act. Observe it. Feel it. Questions. Breathe through it. Count to 5 or even 10. It sounds simple, but those few seconds can save relationships, careers, and peace of mind. People may misunderstand your calmness. Questions. They may think you don't care or that you're too soft. But only you will know the strength it takes to stay composed when your mind is boiling. That strength is not visible, but it is real. Questions. It's the kind of strength that makes leaders, saints, and peacemakers. Imagine a world where more people chose to respond instead of react. Fewer arguments, fewer broken relationships. Questions. Fewer regrets. Imagine homes where silence replaces shouting, workplaces where understanding replaces ego, hearts where wisdom replaces anger. That world begins not with others, but with you. Questions. With your next choice to pause before reacting. So next time life challenges you, remember this: the space between reaction and response is your power. That's where your peace lives. Questions. That's where your strength breathes, and that's where your wisdom waits, quietly, patiently, for you to choose it. Questions. Have you ever noticed how, when you are angry or hurt, you end up saying or doing things that you later regret? In those moments, it feels like something takes over your mind. Logic disappears. Questions. Wisdom vanishes, and all that remains is emotion. That's why there's a simple but powerful truth about human behavior. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. Questions. And understanding this truth can save you from countless mistakes, broken relationships, and sleepless nights. When we're overwhelmed by emotions, anger, jealousy, fear, questions, or pain, our brain doesn't function the same way. Science even proves this. The part of the brain that handles emotion, called the amygdala, hijacks the part that handles reasoning. Questions. That's why when we're emotional, we can't think clearly. We react impulsively, and afterward, When the storm settles, we often wonder, why did I say that? Questions. Why did I do that? Let's take a simple example. Imagine you just had a long, stressful day at work. You're tired, hungry, and mentally drained. You come home, questions, and your spouse or sibling says something small. Maybe they forgot to do something you asked. Instantly, your emotions flare up. You raise your voice, maybe say a few harsh words. Questions. The other person gets defensive, the argument grows, and by the end of it, both of you feel terrible. Later, when you calm down, you realize it wasn't such a big deal after all. But at that moment, questions. Your emotions were in charge, not your intelligence. This happens to all of us. When we are emotional, we stop listening to reason. Our mind becomes like a stormy sea, restless and rough. Questions. Try to see your reflection in a stormy sea. It's impossible. But once the water becomes still, you can see yourself clearly. In the same way, when your mind is disturbed by emotion, questions, you lose the ability to see truth clearly. You can't make wise decisions, you can't judge situations fairly, and you can't respond with balance. Think of a heated argument between two people. Questions. Both are shouting, trying to prove themselves right. In that moment, nobody is listening. Nobody is understanding. They are reacting, not thinking. The moment one of them calms down, questions, the atmosphere changes. The same words spoken softly can change everything. That's because calmness reactivates intelligence. Emotion clouds judgment, calmness clears it. Questions. There's a beautiful story about a monk who was once insulted by a man in public. The man yelled at him, used harsh words, and tried to humiliate him. The monk remained silent and peaceful. Questions. His disciple asked afterward, Guruji, why didn't you say anything? The monk smiled and said, if I had reacted, I would have joined his madness. But if one person remains calm, questions, at least one mind stays intelligent. That is the secret. Staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't let emotions make your decisions for you. Another common situation, questions. Imagine getting an email or text that upsets you. Maybe it's criticism from your boss or a rude message from a friend. Your fingers start typing a reply right away, full of frustration. Questions. But if you pause and wait a few hours before sending it, you'll find that your response changes completely. When emotions cool down, wisdom wakes up. Questions. The message you would have sent in anger might have created a fire. The one you send in calmness can solve the issue instead. That's the power of waiting until intelligence returns. Questions. This principle applies not only to anger but also to excitement or fear. When you're overly excited, you might make impulsive decisions. Spending money you don't have, questions. Trusting people you don't know, or saying yes to things you don't truly want. When you're scared, you might give up too quickly, run away from opportunities, or assume the worst. In both cases, questions. Emotion hijacks intelligence. And that's why, before making any big decision, whether it's about love, career, or life, it's always wise to let emotions settle first. Questions. Let's take another example from everyday life. Suppose your friend forgets your birthday. You feel hurt and disappointed. Emotionally, you might think, questions. They don't care about me anymore. But if you take a day or two to cool down, you might realize they were busy, going through a rough time, or simply forgot unintentionally. Questions. When emotions were high, your thoughts were filled with assumptions. But when emotions settled, your intelligence helped you see the situation clearly. Even in leadership and teamwork, questions. This truth applies. A great leader doesn't react emotionally when things go wrong. They stay composed, think clearly, and respond strategically. Why? Questions. Because they know that when emotions take control, judgment becomes clouded. As Gaur Gopal often says, questions. Don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. We must all train ourselves to recognize the moment when emotion rises. The moment your voice gets louder, your breathing quickens, questions, your thoughts race, that's the sign. That's when you need to pause, take a deep breath, and let intelligence return. Silence becomes your shield, patience becomes your weapon. Questions. It doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It simply means you allow them to pass through you without taking over you. Feel your emotions fully, but don't let them rule your words or actions. Questions. Let your emotions inform you, but let your intelligence guide you. Remember, intelligence is like a lamp. It gives light. Emotion, when uncontrolled, is like a storm. It can blow that lamp out. Questions. But when you protect that lamp with calmness and silence, even in the storm, your wisdom continues to shine. So next time you feel that emotional fire, anger, jealousy, fear, questions, or hurt, remind yourself, this is not the time to decide, not the time to speak. This is the time to be silent and let the storm pass. Because once emotions calm down, questions, your mind becomes your best advisor again. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. But when calmness returns, your inner wisdom shines like the sun after a storm. Questions. And that's when you can see life, people, and yourself clearly, peacefully, and beautifully. Questions. In life, when something painful happens, our first instinct is often to look outward, to focus on what was done to us, who said what, and why it happened. We try to analyze the situation, questions, blame others, or justify ourselves. But silence teaches us something extraordinary. Before you can truly understand the situation, you must first understand yourself. Questions. Silence is not about avoiding what happened. It's about creating space to see clearly what's happening within you. When we are hurt, confused, or angry, the world outside seems chaotic. Questions. But the real chaos often lies inside us, in our own thoughts, insecurities, and emotions. The moment we choose silence, it's like holding up a mirror to our inner world. In that stillness, questions, we begin to hear what our heart is trying to say, what our mind is trying to hide, and what our soul truly feels. Let's take a simple, relatable example. Questions. Suppose a close friend suddenly stops talking to you. You feel hurt and betrayed. Your first impulse might be to confront them, demand answers, or maybe even withdraw in pride. Questions. But if you pause and remain silent for a while, something magical happens. Instead of focusing on what they did, your attention gently turns inward. Questions. You begin to ask yourself deeper questions. Why does this hurt me so much? Is it because I expected something from them? Or is it because I fear losing people I care about? In that quiet reflection, questions, you don't just understand the situation, you begin to understand yourself. Silence gives you access to a wisdom that words often drown out. Questions. The noise of constant thinking and overanalyzing makes us miss the truth that lies just beneath our emotions. When you stop reacting and start reflecting, questions, you see not just what happened, you see why it affects you the way it does. That understanding changes everything. For example, think about a situation where someone criticizes you unfairly. Questions. Naturally, your mind wants to defend itself. You might start forming arguments in your head, thinking of all the reasons why they're wrong. Questions. But if you choose silence, just for a little while, you begin to hear the subtle voice inside. Questions. Maybe you'll realize that part of their criticism touched a real insecurity you have about yourself. Or maybe you'll discover that their words say more about their pain than your worth. Either way, questions. That understanding only comes through silence. Silence acts like a gentle friend who doesn't interrupt, doesn't judge, but simply listens. Questions. It gives you the space to breathe between your emotions and your understanding. It allows your mind to settle, just like muddy water clears up when left undisturbed. When you allow your mind to settle, questions, the truth rises to the surface effortlessly. Think of an artist painting a picture. If their hand keeps shaking, the painting gets ruined. Only when the hand becomes still can the picture take form. Questions. Similarly, when our emotions shake us, we can't see the situation clearly. But once we become still through silence, the whole picture of life starts making sense. Another everyday example. Questions. Imagine you've had a disagreement with your partner or a close friend. You're both angry, both trying to prove a point. In the heat of the moment, words fly like arrows. Later, questions. When you're alone and quiet, you begin to see the situation differently. You realize that maybe you were not angry about the issue itself. Maybe it was something deeper. Maybe you felt unheard. Questions. Unseen or unappreciated. Silence uncovers layers of truth that anger hides. The truth is, we often misunderstand situations because we don't take time to understand ourselves. Questions. Silence helps us listen, not to reply but to comprehend. Questions. It connects us with our inner compass. That subtle voice that always knows the right direction, but is often drowned by the noise of our thoughts and emotions. Questions. In spiritual traditions across the world, silence is seen as a sacred space where self-awareness is born. The sages, monks, questions, and mystics all understood the wisdom doesn't come from constant talking or thinking. It comes from deep listening. And the first person we must learn to listen to is ourselves. Sometimes, questions. When we sit in silence after being hurt, we realize that we are not as broken as we thought. We see that the pain is temporary, but the peace we find within is lasting. Questions. Silence reminds us that no situation can disturb our peace unless we allow it. Questions. It helps us shift our perspective from, why did this happen to me, to, what is this trying to teach me? Imagine a calm lake reflecting the beauty of the sky above. Questions. The lake doesn't need to do anything. It just needs to stay still. Similarly, when we are silent, we begin to reflect the beauty of our true self. Questions. We start to understand that not every battle outside us needs to be fought. Some are meant to be understood inside us. Silence also helps us separate what we can control from what we cannot. Questions. When we're caught in a painful situation, our mind rushes to fix everything: people, outcomes, emotions. But through silence, questions, we realize that the only thing we can truly control is ourselves, our thoughts, our reactions, our peace. The situation may remain the same, but our perception changes. And when perception changes, questions, everything changes. Many people think silence means weakness or avoidance, but true silence is power. It's not running away from reality. It's facing it with awareness. Questions. It's pausing before reacting, observing before concluding, and understanding before deciding. It's a deliberate act of strength. The more we practice silence, questions, the more we understand ourselves. Our trigger fears, our desires, our strengths. And when we understand ourselves, we naturally handle every situation better. Questions. The outer world begins to mirror our inner calm. So next time you're hurt or confused, don't rush to speak or act. Sit in silence for a while. Let the noise settle. Questions. Let your heart whisper the truth that your mind cannot shout. Because the greatest understanding doesn't come from analyzing others. It comes from understanding yourself first. In that silence, questions, you'll realize that peace is not something you have to find in the world. It's something you carry within you, waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear it. And once you understand yourself, questions, no situation can overpower you, because your strength will no longer depend on what happens. It will depend on who you have become. Questions, words are powerful. They have the strength to heal and the power to destroy. Once spoken, they travel faster than we can imagine, entering someone's heart, shaping their emotions, questions, and sometimes leaving scars that never truly fade. That is why silence, especially in moments of pain or anger, is not just a virtue. It's protection. Questions. When we stay silent in the heat of the moment, we are not just avoiding a fight, we are saving ourselves from the regret of words we can never take back. All of us at some point questions have said things we didn't mean. We've spoken out of anger, out of frustration, or out of the desire to hurt someone the way we felt hurt. But later, when emotions calm down and clarity returns, questions, we wish we could rewind time and erase those words. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a backspace button. Once words are out, they cannot be unsaid. The wound may heal, questions, but the scar remains, both for the one who hears and the one who spoke. Think of a simple example. You're in an argument with a close friend. Tempers flare, emotions rise, questions, and suddenly you blurt out something harsh. Maybe you call them selfish, careless, or ungrateful. The moment you say it, you might feel justified. But later, when you're alone, questions, your heart feels heavy. You realize that one sentence might have damaged years of friendship. You didn't mean it, but it's too late. Questions. The silence you avoided in that moment could have saved a bond that words later couldn't repair. Questions. There's a story of a wise teacher who once told his students to squeeze toothpaste out of a tube onto a plate. After they did it, he asked them to put the toothpaste back inside. They all laughed, questions, saying it was impossible. The teacher smiled and said, exactly. Once words are spoken, they can't be taken back. Questions, just like this toothpaste. That simple example holds a lifelong lesson. Our words have direction but no reverse gear. In daily life, we often underestimate the power of silence. Questions. We think speaking our mind immediately is strength, that responding quickly shows confidence. But true strength lies in knowing when not to speak. Questions. Because silence at the right time can save you from a lifetime of regret. Let's take another everyday example. Imagine you're a parent and your child breaks something valuable in the house. Questions. Out of irritation and disappointment, you shout saying, "You're so careless. You never do anything right." In that moment, you just released your frustration. But for the child, questions, those words may echo for years. You didn't mean to harm. You just reacted. Yet those few words could plant seeds of insecurity that take years to heal. Silence, questions, even for a few seconds before speaking, gives you time to choose your words with love instead of anger. In relationships, hurtful words create distance faster than time can heal it. Questions. You might apologize later, but the damage has already been done. Apologies can cover wounds, but they can't erase memories. People remember how you made them feel. Questions. And sometimes one harsh sentence can undo 1,000 kind ones. That's why silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the wisdom to hold back when your heart is boiling. Questions. To pause before your tongue becomes a weapon. Think of a time when someone said something that deeply hurt you. Maybe they didn't mean it. Questions. Maybe they were just emotional, but you still remember it, don't you? That's how lasting words can be. We often forgive actions quicker than we forget words. Questions. The heart remembers the vibration of pain. So before we speak, it's worth asking ourselves questions. Do I want this to be remembered forever? A silence allows us to filter our thoughts before they become words. It gives us a chance to process what we feel. When we are hurt, questions, our words usually come from pain, not wisdom. And pain always speaks loudly but rarely speaks kindly. By staying silent, we let the storm of emotion pass, so that when we finally speak questions, our words come from understanding, not from anger. There's an old saying, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Questions. Is it kind? Silence is the space where we can test our words against those gates. When you stay silent, you can check, is what I'm about to say true, or am I just angry? Is it necessary? Questions. Or am I just trying to prove a point? Is it kind, or will it leave a wound? That's the power of silence. It helps you edit your heart before you speak your mind. In the modern world, questions, silence has become rare. We live in an age of instant reactions, instant messages, instant opinions, instant replies. But instant words often lead to permanent damage. The faster we react, questions, the deeper we regret. That's why it's wise to delay our words until our emotions cool down. Because what feels like truth in anger often turns into regret in peace. Even in professional life, questions, this truth stands tall. Think of a manager who scolds an employee harshly in front of others out of frustration. The problem might get solved, but the employee's motivation is destroyed. Later, questions. The manager might realize that silence first, followed by a calm conversation later, could have been far more effective. The same applies to friendships, marriages, families, questions, and every human connection. One moment of silence can save years of misunderstanding. One deep breath can prevent one deep scar. The heart might urge you to speak, to retaliate, questions, to prove, but silence whispers, wait, because what you say in anger today might be what you wish you never said tomorrow. So, questions. The next time you're hurt and your tongue is ready to fight back, pause. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the emotion, but don't let it control your words. Let your silence become your wisdom. Questions. Let it be your shield against regret. Because once a word leaves your mouth, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the world, to the person who heard it, to the memory it created. Questions. But when you choose silence, you remain the master of your words, not their prisoner. Remember, hurt words can't be taken back, but silence never has to be. Questions. You'll never regret a word you didn't say, but you'll often regret the ones you did. So guard your words like treasures. Use them carefully, sparingly, and only when they can heal, not hurt. Questions. For in the end, it's not how much we say that defines us, but how wisely we speak and how gracefully we stay silent.